I'm going to be talking about smarter ways of integrating sustainable travel solutions. Climate change or climate strikes has been the word of the year. It's going to feature throughout today. But there's been a call for less beautiful speeches and more practical solutions. As you'll quickly become aware, I'm anything but a beautiful speaker. So I'm going to give my interpretation. It's going to be very high level. Probably quite subjective, so it'll probably raise more questions than answers. It's a shame Phil's not in here actually, but he picked up on it earlier that other sectors are improving massively, but actually transport over the last 5 years has actually got worse. Don't need to tell you that road transport is the main contributor to this. Interesting to hear Chloe's take on it. My take on it is the major opportunity actually lies in this gap is that trips under 5 miles in distance. This is the distance where we have attractive alternatives to travelling by private vehicle. So basically the premise of my presentation is that we can't continue to go down the road we're on. That's not going to get us to net zero. We've got to move away from thinking about transport as a dichotomy of car or no car. It needs to be a holistic approach to addressing carbon. And the reason that is, I guess, is because we're only just starting to prioritise walking and cycling in cities now. Whilst it is improving, cycle levels are starting from a very low base. Rail, on the other hand, huge emphasis on rail, but actually in terms of pure trip numbers, only caters for the same amount of people as cycling, 2%. That should say the actual percentage for the budget, in contrast, is 55%. It's a huge disparity there. Follows on quite nicely from Chloe, but bus travel has come a long way since this famous Margaret Thatcher quote, but unfortunately bus patronage has been falling since 2008. And then again, there's this EVs are put forward as the promised solution. Commitment to climate change, obviously massively pushing forward decarbonisation, electrification of the network. This is gaining a lot of political will. There's market forces in place which are pushing the sales, but unfortunately we're already behind the indicators which are required, and there's a fundamental gap in policy for public charging. This is an attempt at humour, but this guy's taken it into his own hands. He's got his cable coming from his second floor window, and then there are countless examples of I guess obstruction in the footway. This isn't to say I'm against EVs, because I'm not, but I just don't think, similar to Chloe, we shouldn't be concentrating our efforts on rolling out public chargers on a one-for-one basis. That is essentially still a pro-car policy. If they're shared, brilliant. So I guess that initial bit of spiel is all about how modes in isolation aren't strong enough to address the challenges we're facing. So looking back, how hard have we tried as an industry to integrate modes? Excuse me. I guess that largely started in 2003 in London with the Oyster card. 4 years later, we had contactless payments in 2007, wide global standard really. Everyone thought this would be the key to changing the accessibility of transport and integrating travel modes. 10 years later in Exeter, Stagecoach bus services provided cash-free payments, said it would revolutionise the network. Unfortunately, it's very unflattering. There have been providers such as WIM, City Map is obviously moving towards a mass service, but more than 15 years on from the Oyster card. In terms of seamless mobility, we're still a way off where we're aspiring to get towards. Personally, I find this quite frustrating. The majority of cities already have these assets and technologies in place. For instance, most cities will have car clubs, shared bikes, demand responsive transport, or at least will do in a few years when the market begins to fill in these gaps. As an industry, we talk about systematic change a lot, but actually I've just shown, especially in terms of innovation and technology, changes don't happen overnight in transport. So we've got a major challenge to try and accelerate the uptake of these newer modes of mobility and then combine them with the traditional means of transport in collaboration rather than competition. So I guess I see this as a major opportunity. The chap from DFT, I've forgotten his name, but he alluded to the fact that most evidence in DFT is counting assumptions, but actually there's a lot of evidence out there on shareability that they can make major improvements, and I'd see mobility hubs in England as one way which we can start rolling out immediate change. So for instance in Exeter, shameless plug for where I work for, but we're looking at mobility hubs as locations to have a car club, access to shared electric bikes, located on a high frequency bus corridor, and with access to a strategic cycle. Instead of, I suppose with development it's a major opportunity, this is where we can get Section 106 development contributions. We could fund pilots, and rather than the traditional travel planning, personal travel planning or taster tickets, we could offer then a subscription or taster pilot to a subscription service which provided unlimited bus travel within the city, unlimited trips on a shared bike for trips less than half an hour, and some access to a private vehicle or a car club. I see this as really a two-pronged attack, or a carrot and a stick, because it's a means of reducing parking provision within new developments, and it also offers them a private alternative, sustainable alternative. Why is this important? In terms of overall strategy for England, growth levels are quite frightening. Say it again, we can't continue with this level of urban sprawl. So land use planning, street planning, sort of lining up all the dots is going to be ever more important. And in terms of reaching net zero, running over already, in terms of reaching carbon objectives, we have to start with new developments. If these aren't sustainable, we've got no hope. Car clubs as an example, probably the most contentious of modes, because it is still in essence a car. For most people outside of their home, it would be their most expensive asset. There's this real confusion around the financial case for this, and many people don't realise the inefficiencies in ownership. So private cars only use 3% of the time, 8% of cars don't leave a given space for a week, and 30% show no signs of any commute patterns. Compared this to shared cars, actually they use 20% of the time. Electric vehicles are used between 30 and 50% of the time. And especially for local authorities where I work, this provides us with a strategy to rolling out public EV charging, which is obviously a huge benefit. Changes user traffic patterns, remove 6 to 15 vehicles from the network. Starting to wrap up. Yeah, so it was interesting for me to sit in earlier and listen. I actually don't think the DFT have done enough in terms of shared mobility and mobility as a service. You can just tell that by the regulation on the bike share network. But I do think we need to be more proactive, not reactive. And then the main message is we just need to start. The optimist in me, I'm also partly cynical, but the optimist in me believes that marginal gains in the right areas can make a major difference. But we all need to do all we can now. And slightly cliched, but I always like to finish on the quote. So change has never happened this fast before, it'll never be this slow again. So I think with growth, climate change, urbanisation are major challenges, but these also represent major opportunities. I speak for everyone, I think it's exciting to be in this sector.
So being from Exeter myself, pretty much almost every day, me and my girlfriend basically agree, well, how are we travelling today? Because we can get a day ticket for the bus, or we can get a day ticket for the train. And once that's the mode for the day. So what do you think is the biggest barrier to having integrated ticketing, as you spoke about?
I actually think it's collaboration. If anyone's worked with a rail company, I'm sure they'll probably testify. But I spent the last few days at the COMO conference, which is Clover Mobility. There's a lot of, I guess, the private suppliers who have been leading this demand for a mobility as a service package. And unfortunately, it still comes down to each business needing to make profit. So we talk about data sharing, digitalisation a lot, but actually dissemination of this data isn't good enough. I don't think local authorities have the I guess the skills, the data and the policies to be able to influence and all this quite, yeah.
So Alex, I started my career in Devon, so it's great to see that stuff is still happening well in the county. Just as a matter of interest, are you involved or working with any of the big centres of of traffic? So things like the Royal Devon and Exeter and places like that, where there's a lot of movement to and from it, both for the staff and for patients. Are you kind of working with people like that in this idea?
Yeah, of course, yeah. For background, those who don't know Devon or Exeter, it's a small city of around 130,000, but the hospital is one major trip generators within the city. Historic road network, and it's located right in the centre. It's a huge travel demand into the hospital, limited parking, got parking ride service, but other than that, it's not within walking distance. For active people, it's within walking distance of the train station, but major challenges there. So we've got an electric bike docking station going in there this year. Car club vehicles are on site. Working with people like LiftShare who are trying to promote car sharing, but it's still not enough in my opinion. More needs to be done, but it's preaching to the converted probably. Very much.